Hi, my name's Bruce. This is my channel. I'm back here. It's my classroom in the forest. As you can tell, I have my chalkboard. I have my forest. I actually have my chalk. That's it. If you've been following along in the videos, you'll know that I like to talk about stuff, particularly economics. And I want to backtrack a little tiny bit for some what we'll call raison d'etre, the reason for being. What happened? Okay, well, the reason I started doing this, or one of the reasons, but I do it for me, but one of my motivators is because in my life, if I've been somewhere, I've been in a coffee place or a bar or a grocery store or the street corner or listening to the radio, whatever, and people have been having conversations about their lives and the world and what they perceive as the economy or what we perceive as the economy, the question would always come up and say, not always, yeah, pretty well always, someone would say, geez, I don't understand why I have to balance my checkbook. I have to look after my financial affairs, but why can't the government look after theirs? And now, myself, I have, in my life, I have pursued formal education in the field of economics. I've attended economics seminars. I have economics books. I read a lot of economics, economic theory, and all this stuff, and public policy theory and government theory. And the answer is that there is an answer to that question. Okay, there's an answer to that question. And so in the videos, I thought I would attempt to provide some version of an answer to that question that people could accept. Okay, now sometimes I get a little bit off track. I mean, I make some videos about electric cars, my electric car. Why? Because every person that has an electric car over a gasoline car or a diesel car, that's a win. Okay, that's a win for the world. Period. This thing with the climate emergency, that's real. If you don't think that that's real, tune in. Maybe I'll talk about that in more detail. And another thing that's happened is you might have noticed, and if you've really been following along and you know me, you'll note that maybe it's kind of surprising. I've been avoiding certain topics, right, in my discussions here. And the topics I've been avoiding are some of the conflicts that are occurring in the world right now. Okay. And there's, the big ones. We have the I don't want to say the big ones because the ones in the news, the Ukraine. Okay. If you go back, I made a video about our estimable diminutive president of Russia, and you can follow that, and that's one. Another one is the conflict that exists in the Middle East. And I've ducked this. I haven't mentioned anything about it. But I'd like to, I believe, should mention this in a somewhat of a context. Okay. Now, I have a book. I'm going to share a book with you. Here, this is call it the book club moment of the channel. Just a second, I'll grab the book. I'm here. I'm working to get the book. If you notice, it's both snowy and snowing. So you can't just throw the book down on the ground because it'll get covered in snow and wet and stuff. And it's not that bad. They dry, but there you go. This is the book. Hey. Okay, I don't know if that's. There you go. Can you see that? This is a book. Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace. I first read this book 35 years ago, something like that. And then, and there's a funny story about me reading the book, but that'll just make the video too long. But skipping that story, the book can be summarized as this. A bunch of people are at a party, then they have another party, then there's a war. I think there's another war. And Napoleon and his army march towards Moscow. Okay, they march towards Moscow. And then what happens is they get to Moscow. And then what happens? Well, I'll tell you. If you skip to the last chapter of the book, it's summarized as this: we all got drunk and went home. We got drunk and we went home. Okay? Why? Why? And this is the key here. The why is because they ran out of stuff to do. Okay? Do. Things to do. Things to make. Things. Okay? I'm a person. I'm here. I'm doing this. I'm making this video. In my life, I have made and done other things. We are human beings. We need to do and we need to make. That's what we do. If you go back to my earliest video, I talked about this idea of more. There's an economic concept of the never expanding human desire to have more. Okay, and there's in psychology, I think it's psychology, hierarchy of needs. But it's as our needs are achieved, then the brain is funny and we just go along and we want more. And I'm lucky because right now I'm fulfilling my more, which is at an idea level, and I'm trying to convey my ideas to an audience that is hopefully, you guys are hopefully maybe listening. And that's another aside. I can't believe anyone pays attention. I'm shocked, really, that I have any subscribers whatsoever. So speaking of subscribers, if you could subscribe, that'd be great. If you could like the video, that'd be great. It's a little bit of positive feedback, or I'll take negative feedback. For me, I like it. Thank you very much. Okay, this idea. But getting back to this idea of more and this idea of do, I'm going to just step out for a second. I'm going to put my book away because I don't want it to get wrecked. It's a normal thing. Okay, back. Now, this idea of more. Okay, and do. Okay. Now, if you look here in North America, we have, to quote a former premier of the province of Alberta, we have an embarrassment of riches. Okay. Mostly we have shelter, although there's a housing crisis. Mostly we have food on our tables, although we had a period of inflation that made food more expensive and housing more expensive and everything more expensive, and it's a little bit painful. Okay, but in general, we have these things. Okay. And then you say, well, we have entertainment, we have movies, we have bars, we have coffee shops, we have this great video channel you can tune in and watch and subscribe. But we have this stuff. Now, if you go to another area and where objectively it doesn't exist, okay? The human bit, the do and the want and the expand, this in our core, at the core of our being, that still exists. Okay? Now, another thing is I used to, in my pursuit of photography, I used to pursue a lot of things simultaneously. In pursuit of photography, and it wasn't really photography, but it was the same idea. I was trying to convey through a visual medium a message. But in this, I used to spend a lot of time hanging around some spots that where some of the people had more challenges than you might expect. And I had to be conscious of myself. And the reason why is because I had relationships with these people, and they had a fealty, a loyalty towards me, and I had loyalty towards them. And then I know that if I was to suggest the wrong thing, then someone would act on it. Like if you say, just in joking, say, geez, that guy deserves a punch in the face, well, then there'd be somebody that would actually do that. Okay? And that's not good. And that actually happened to me one time in 1976. Okay, 1976. That's a whole other story. I don't want to make the video too long. Again. Okay. So this is the thing. Now, if you take a place like Russia, Okay? Russia has a standing army. A standing army is a bunch of people that are professional, and you pay them to be in the army, and they train, and etc. Right? So then Vladimir Putin, who I think is lost the plot, fully lost the plot. Okay, he's a lost the plot at a historical level. Not good, not good at all. Vladimir Putin took his standing army and said, "Well, let's go, invade Ukraine." And then he doesn't just have that. There's another mechanism he has, which is the Russian state media. Like television in Russia, radio in Russia is focused on the message that comes from the Kremlin. The Kremlin is a euphemism for Vladimir Putin. Okay, it's not like the Kremlin is like a group of 40 men and women who are applying sagacity to a situation and a context and to improve the lives of their citizens. No. It's this one guy, right? And then he says it, and then that's what happens. Okay. But army, what do? They invade. Had a big war. Still on. Not good. Okay. Now, and I talked earlier about some of Putin's kleptocratic track record, and that he's deprived the Russian people of a lot of stuff because he's diverted resources towards himself rather than doing the job of being in government, which is what. And there's an answer to what is the job of the person of government. The job of government is to maximize the well-being of everyone in society. That is the job of government. Okay, so if here in a democratic nation, if we don't perceive that our government is maximizing the well-being of everyone, then the election doesn't go in that direction. Okay, now we might have differences of opinion about how to do that exactly. Some people might want apples and other people want oranges, but at the core here, I believe that the governments of the Western nations, or the democratic nations, are acting in the best interest of their people. And the democracies are doing globally remarkably well. I mean, like the things that we take for granted in a democracy are, in terms of human things, are palpable and they're wonderful. What do I mean? Well, one, you can turn on the tap and the water comes and you can drink it. Two, you can go to the washroom, you can flush the toilet, and magically the waste material disappears and is treated. Three, you can turn on the lights and the lights just work. Four, you can walk out into the street and you can take public transit, you can walk, you can take your bicycle, you can take your private automobile, you can do whatever, and you can go somewhere. You can do these things. You know that your children will go to school and they will learn. They will learn. They might not learn what you want them to learn, and they might learn things that challenge you as a parent, but your children will learn. These are the things that happen in a modern democracy. Okay. Now, Russia. There's channels like 1420, 1420, Daniel Oren there's many channels that have very brave Russian people, and they're doing interviews with Russian citizens, and they are showing life in Russia as it is for real. And I take away many things from these videos. Two things that I'm going to mention. One is that there's a massive discrepancy between Moscow and not Moscow. And two is that massive discrepancy is that there's lots and lots of Russia that does not have these things that I just mentioned, these things we take for granted. Okay, and what does this have to do with the do? All right, well, the do is, another thing that in the videos is that if you look at the background of any of these videos, you'll see a lot of items that come from trading with Western democracies. Okay? Like all the automobiles are not Russian. All of the windows are not Russian. All of the electronic things that you see operating the infrastructure of of Russian cities is not Russian. All of the clothing that the people are wearing is not Russian. Okay? Bear that in mind. So that's kind of lost opportunity in a way. It's a bit of a more of a complicated thing. These are things that, so in Canada and in the United States, governance is a little tiny bit more complicated, because you say, well, I've talked about what do we have and what do we know in the context of identifying resources and knowledge that we have, and then we can use it to advance this idea of more. But you're hard pressed, although I'm going to acknowledge that it does exist. Okay, there are communities in Canada that do not have electricity. There are communities in the United States that do not have electricity. There are communities wherever that do not have running water, and there is a concerted effort to fix this. Okay, and a valid criticism, or someone's going to say, hey, what about First Nations communities in Canada that don't have access to clean drinking water? Well, that's a problem that is being addressed. And objectively, if you look at where the problem was 8 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, you can see, because you can look it up, keeping track. And okay, a certain number of years ago, say there was 100 communities that didn't have clean drinking water, 50, 20, things are getting better. They're not getting better fast enough if you happen to be the one that doesn't have the water, but things are getting better. All right, so rather than invading Ukraine, the Russian government, Putin, and the Russians there is an election coming up, and they should just flick a switch and magically have that into an actual election, as opposed to the election that's going to happen, meaning that they're not exactly what one would call free, fair, predictable, and without consequence for the voters. Rather than invading Ukraine, they should have just focused on this idea of more, okay, and creating more industry within Russia that's not related to war production, more industry within Russia that's going to make the lives of everyday Russian citizens better. That's real. Okay. Now, maybe in the next video I'll move to the discussion of the other conflict that's in the news, and that's a serious thing. Okay, but anyway, so if I had to summarize this whole thing, it's this: is people want to do stuff. So let's have people do things that are productive towards making our lives better, and their lives better, and your life better. Okay? And that is not strife. Strife's bad. That's it. Okay. Thank you. Bye.